Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the show.
The Who Knows What podcast with Mahesh and Tony and friends from around the world.
Let's see. Let's see what she says.
The absolute.
There she we're live now. Let me call her. I'll call her. Hold on.
Yeah, man, but this book is like every page is, every little nuanced verse is
yeah.
a tool for
drop down in the chat.
One item.
Refresh your page and look at the chat. And then scroll down to see if you see. Scroll down on the page right there. Is the chat not showing up? You might have to.
I got to go over here to your live link.
She's not answering, so I don't know.
Oh, I see what. I got to delete those other two previous lives so that it comes to this live.
Here it is.
Yeah.
There should be somebody telling you besides this person I'm trying to reach who's not available right now, telling you that they can hear you, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
No, there's not.
And there's nobody.
No, that's right.
There's nobody telling you that they can hear.
Well,
correct.
So
it's not coming up for me.
That leads me to believe that nobody can hear, except they can hear me. So,
you sure the chat's not showing for you?
Oh, here it comes.
anything yet?
This is,
So she just sent me a screenshot. Let's see what's it. She can see you guys. 30 minutes of nothing. She said. Still can't hear you. Stream 25 minutes ago, 7 views.
No, I'm going to delete those two. That's why. Hold on. Delete.
wow, that's a long delay. A 1 minute delay.
All right. Tell her to refresh. It should pull up the live we're on.
On YouTube?
Yeah. I deleted the other two lives that were.
Okay. They were running too?
Content. Okay. We should be.
We'll see.
Check your chat. Not the Zoom chat, the one on YouTube. Yeah.
Do you see anybody saying they can hear you? Anybody telling you they can hear you?
I don't see that we have any viewers.
Only Tony. No one else.
Well, let's try it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Now, so you want the YouTube link? Drop this link. What's on your mind?
Hey. They removed the video. Yeah. And then did you refresh and can you hear them now?
You should refresh and see.
You guys talk.
If you refresh, you should be able to see the new video, the new live.
Do you see a new video of the new live or no? No. You refreshed and now there's no video? She refreshed and now there's no.
What?
Well, you're going to go back to my Facebook page and click on that? Well,
Yeah. All right. Click on the link again. See if it brings her back to the new video.
Oh, I see. So if you go, if you go click on the link that I posted 23 times, it says this link has been removed.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, yeah. So, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, he created a new link, right?
So it looks like that.
So, right, Mahesh, you created a new link, so nobody has the new link.
So post it to the 23, or can we comment it?
Well, you're gonna have to give it to me.
Try her.
I gotta go through and
give her that link. See if that works.
All right. Before I go through this, here's a link. Try this one. Okay. Let's see if this works. If this does not work, then we're shit out of luck. Let's see. Okay, hold on a second. Try this. Here you go. Try that one. Yeah, I see this video. So I got to go through and I got to delete all the, or either that or I got to edit all of them, 23 of them, with a new link.
Facebook.
Yeah, and then at least they can get.
So let's see.
That's why I wanted to come earlier for this reason. Yeah.
So let's see.
You've had that to do. It was good that you.
What time is it? 12:30. What do I got next? I have a little window. I got a window till 4 p.m. Central.
It's 2:30 here.
So, yeah, I got a window for another hour and a half. Let's see.
But we have to. Oh yeah, this content.
You should have done a test.
Yeah.
So this is what the fresh link has on it now. That's the fresh link.
I can't see anything.
That's the brand new one.
Oh, that just goes to the chat. Okay, hold on. YouTube. I see what happened. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Live link. Copy.
Fresh link has on it now. That's the fresh link.
Okay.
That's the brand new one.
Oh, that just goes to the chat. Okay, hold on. YouTube. I hear myself. What's that? I see what happened. Sorry. I'm hearing myself. Who's playing that? Okay, here we go. Live link. Copy.
Fresh link has on it now.
Oh, that I see. It's.
Okay, Clown City. Here we are. Let's get this together. We're live on YouTube, right?
Yeah, YouTube Live.
Are we going live on Facebook?
Well, not really. The link is available on Facebook, but it's not. We're not live on Facebook. It just means that people on Facebook will click and come to this video.
When you press start, we're going to start the show, and it's going to be a live stream on Facebook. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Not quite. It's just going to be a link that brings them.
No, they have to do another step. They have to click on the link, and it's going to take them to your YouTube.
Correct. Oh, yep. Sharon is here.
Oh, she can.
I can hear
you.
Yeah,
she can hear. She can hear. She says.
Shout out to Sharon. Nice. All right. Thank you for helping us on the test.
So now I gotta cut and paste this new one into the 23.
Please be patient with us. We're working out the kinks here. I apologize, guys. This is my first live situation here. I've mostly done pre-recorded.
Right, so I gotta do this. How do I get rid of this? Shoot. Yeah. How do I get rid of that? Dang.
Here.
Edit.
Turn that music off for a second.
Oh my God.
You want to do it before the show or after?
Oh, I don't want to do it after because everybody's going to be really pissed off, and even more so after. Are you serious? The longer we wait,
right?
The more pissed off people will be. Shit, they're going to delete it. Delete posts. I'm going to delete them.
And just publish that. I guess that's background music.
Delete.
While we're on pause, I want some music.
Well, yeah, that's why I was just kind of playing this intro a little bit while I.
All right.
Delete.
Do you always do what you're told?
Me?
Yeah.
Depends on the situation. If it's a high stress situation, I may cave into suggestions.
See, the trouble is now other people have all these other things in here. I have to scroll way down to find them. Where is it?
Put them at the top of those again.
Where's mine? Oh, here it is. Some of these are so active, people just post a gajillion things. Hold on a second. That's okay. That one. That one. This one. I'll just post a recording to these later. I'm not going to screw around with this. Let's see. That's Hawaiian. Delete. I have to. Yeah, she said I got to get going, but I have to delete these, Sharon. I don't want these sitting out here.
Mm.
I guess I got 23 of these out here, and I want to be pissing people off saying, "Hey," because then the groups will ban me from ever posting. All right, turning within.
All right. So the topic today, we're going to get into one of Kelvin's past lives experience, right? The Lakota experience, or your connection to the Lakota heritage.
Yeah, hold on. I'm not done.
Right. Again, if you're just joining us, please be patient. We're just working out some of the kinks. On the next time, this will not be the case. I'll be able to just push a button and go.
Can we not trim it?
And yeah, we could trim the version that I would put out. In the live session, this will all be raw material that will be there dead. I think I can trim it within Google. Actually, yeah, Google gives me the option to go in and shorten up where we actually started.
And how about Facebook? Oh,
no, it's not gonna. It's gonna be based off of the
not
YouTube
on Facebook.
link.
Okay,
So,
okay.
So all this software does is just blast the link out, and then they have to click the link to come to this video.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Am I almost done? Here.
You have your questions ready?
Nope. No questions.
Okay. Well, I have.
All right, I'm almost done here.
Share.
All right, I think that's it.
Sharon, if you have an opening question, I'm willing to take it.
All right, one more. My main one. Trash. All right, rock and roll. Let's go.
All right.
You want to open it up?
All right, let's go ahead and open it up. Welcome to the show, everyone. It's your boy, Mahesh Chokolingo, on Who Knows What podcast with Mahesh and friends. And we have a wonderful returning guest to the show, Mr. Kelvin Chin, author, meditation teacher, and life after life expert. On our last episode, we got pretty deep with some conversations, and we wanted to have him back to, elaborate on some more past life experiences and, what he actually teaches. Because you do have a course running now, correct? Where you're actually, yeah.
You have a bunch of courses going on. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, we're happy to have you back on. Again, sorry for the delays. My apologies on that. We'll improve on that as we go along. And thank you for granting us the honor of coming back on. And so I guess to kick off the whole thing, I don't know if you want to sort of let everyone know what your course is about that you're doing right now, and how we can get involved with it if it was an interest to someone listening.
I teach a number of different courses. I have an afterlife class right now that's going on as we speak, and if people still want to join, they can join. It's a 6-part series that covers everything about the afterlife. We talk about what happens after we die, what it's like on the other side. Do we see dead loved ones and so forth? What can we get glimpses of the other side, near-death experiences, other spiritually transformative experiences, stuff like that. Reincarnation, I talk about past lives. You guys know we're going to talk about that today. One of my most recent book, my third book about that. I talk about punishment and karma and dharma, and do those concepts really exist in a universal way on the other side, or is it more man-made, and is it more kind of just if you're in the particular club that believes in that, is that what happens on the other side? Talk about what continues after we die, in my opinion, for eternity. That's what my understanding is anyway. So we talk all about that. That's in a 6-part series. It goes every other week, every other Sunday. And if people still want to join, they can join and catch up and watch the recording of the session, the first session that they may have missed. So they just go to kelvinchin.org and sign up there. You'll see it says Afterlife series. So that's one of the things. And then the other Afterlife session I do for free every month is on the 30th of the month. So the next was July 30th will be the next one. And that's just an open forum. It's different from the 6-part series, which is more structured with topics. The one I do every month for free worldwide is on any question anybody has about afterlife. It's not structured other than people just asking me questions, open forum. Again, they can go to kelvinchin.org and sign up there on that particular page if they want to register. So those are the classes I got going on that relate to afterlife. And you guys know I still obviously teach meditation regularly.
Yes. And because that's how mutually we all know each other from the TM movement to some degree.
Right.
An accelerating, interesting topic to the masses, meditation, transcendence.
In terms of everything happening now in the United States, part of what my channel got started on was kind of bringing certain awareness to the political landscape and controversial topics that are out there right now on the net. And I don't know if you've been seeing all the trends that's been following, in terms of politically, spiritual, cultural, that's going on. I think I got involved politically or active around 2016. That was around the Trump time, because I started seeing a trend in the U.S. of fear and people being afraid to talk about things. And there was almost a self-censorship and a technological censorship going on. So in terms of, I guess right now what I see on the U.S. or the Western landscape is there's a lot of fear brewing. And what do you see playing out right? Is there hope for us as a country, as a nation, moving forward with everything that's happening right now?
Well, there's always hope. There's always hope. I'm a big believer in hope. I gave a speech on my high school graduation, and that's how I kind of ended the speech. But I laid out the scenario that was going on during the Vietnam War and the racial tension in the United States then, and the protests that were going on as it relates to race and war at the time in 1969. But I was encouraging people, just as I do now, to help promote change, to help do influence change. So there's always hope. The difference in my perspective now, that I'm a few decades older than what I was when I was 18 years old giving that speech at my high school graduation, is that I have a lot more patience for the speed of change, let's just say.
Okay.
You go back and read my speech from June 1969 to compare to today, July 2023. The world has not changed that much, although it has changed. So it's to me, hope resides in a perspective for a better future, but also an embracing of what reality is in the present, and not jumping from one to the other or back and forth. You can have both at the same time. The problem, I think, is that what happens with most people is they hate the present, they jump to some utopian future,
right,
and then they imagine that the utopian future is the reality present, and then it creates incredible suffering, frustration, and in many cases, incredible anger. And so, because it's a non-acceptance of reality, I think that's what anger is, an emotion, a reflective emotion of non-acceptance of reality. So I think we need to accept the reality that is, and influence to whatever degree we can to make change for a better future. So it's not that we cannot have an ideal image of what future is. I think that's healthy. But we need to understand we're living in the continual present. We're not living in the utopian ideal future. And it's not an intellectual thing. I mean, if I said this in a lecture to people, they go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we all know that. But then emotionally, they're not in the present.
Right.
And that leads to frustration, anger, suffering, and quite frankly, it leads to bad decisions. And it allows things to just continue to not change, because you can't hate somebody who's hating and say you want peace. That was essentially, if I had to distill my high school graduation lecture down to one sentence, that's one of the points that I was hammering in that lecture. And so I still believe that today. That said, I'm much more patient because I have a lot of experiences. You go back 6,000 years, my memories. And so I have a lot better understanding of humanity and how the personality, at least I remember it more now. That's one major factor, okay? The reality, present reality, the continued present, along with the ideal image issue, okay? That's one concept. The other big one is free will, is people have to embrace and understand that you cannot force somebody to be peaceful. You can't force somebody to do anything. Forcing somebody to be peaceful only makes them less peaceful, because you have now pushed them into a corner. Okay. So that's another fundamental principle. And you'll see that played out all over in politics, religion, education, educational choices, et cetera, is this pushing, forcing somebody to believe the perspective that you believe. Influence is good and healthy.
Right. But
yeah.
But it can also be used. Influence can also be used to do bad things too, which is kind of where we're straddling that line right now as a culture, as a society. That's
a concept of really teaching people. That's an educational issue. That's an educational issue to teach people. And again, because of my experiences, I have a longer term perspective on this. I'm more patient.
I agree.
I don't expect the change to happen overnight. And I see this in spiritual circles all the time. I you know, I'm invited to speak to a lot of them, and I hear it, you know, I can hear it, and I don't want to throw water on people's enthusiasm for changing the world. But there is an expectation amongst many spiritual circles that it's going to change and be utopian-ish in a matter of months or years or decades.
Mm.
And I'm sorry to say that it's going to take a lot longer than that. And you got to be patient. If you're not patient, you will push and you will step on other people's free will toes, and they will resent it and they won't change. That's the reality.
I couldn't have said it better. I agree with that. I know. I like that perspective. That's pretty on point. Sharon asked something. I think, I'm not sure if it was a question or she was being funny. She said, how come we all hear so many Native Americans' past lives? Not too many Twains or Richard Lionhearted, but lots of Native American past lives.
Because we're on.
Yeah, she's joking because she knows about my past lives and she knows about my friend George's past lives. That's why she's joking anyway. She's teasing you.
Got it.
But no, answer her question about why are we talking about Native, because you guys know the answer to that.
Yeah.
The audience doesn't. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's a super good question, and you know, my initial kind of experience around why so many people have experiences of Native American lifetimes in the past, or dreams, or some affinity that they can't quite put their finger on around Native American, is because we're on the earth there. And all of that intelligence comes in and out of the earth. The lifetime of a human being is just like a drop in the bucket. But, you know, I think that intelligence lives in the earth, especially the land where those events happen. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think there's some memory value to it. And, you know.
My beef is with that subject is that I see that those things are being used now as a way of almost trying to influence people in terms of using that history as a victim, almost trying to educate people to be a victim. What I mean by that is, lately, whenever Native American comes up in the conversation, or African American in today's climate, it always seems to, or the impression I get is that they want to tell you about the history. Oh, look at the slavery, look at what we did to the Native Americans, almost as if to say that, or to put a guilt on the person, to say this is why we need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that X, Y, and Z is, right? But what I see is when we look at these historical events, it's used in a manner as if to put guilt on the population, and it's not talked about in a way that's spiritual or uplifting, or saying, hey, look at, that's what happened, but look at how far we've come, and look at where we're going, and it's being used as a...
Yeah, and look at how we could improve and learn from those mistakes that the U.S. government, I think all rational people anyway would agree that there were mistakes made.
Agreed.
You know, in the 1800s.
Right.
That there were, I can't remember, it was the number is some stupid, crazy number, like 170 treaties were broken by the U.S. government with the various different native tribes, not just the tribe that I was part of it then. You know, it's so many, we call them nations. We thought of ourselves as nations, but these groups, we'll call them tribes, just for the sake of the audience understanding what we're talking about. So many broken treaties, and you know, for monetary gain. Okay, so let's learn from that. I agree with you. I'm not into blaming about the past and so forth. And I'm not here to speak, to be very clear, I'm not here to speak on behalf of current Native American, you know, Native leaders, indigenous leaders here in the United States of America, that we now call the USA now. I'm not here to speak on their behalf, but I do have memories, and they're really very clear, very deep emotional memories, and they're seared into my consciousness of how bad and how horrific it was. So yeah, I agree with you. Let's learn from that. Let's not repeat those same things. So the problem I see is that when people say, well, let's move forward, sometimes that means let's forget about the past. I think that's a mistake. I think we have to learn from our past. We have to take it in, whatever it is, the good, bad, and the ugly, and we learn from it. And that's to me what I have done and learned about myself and my own mistakes that I've made over the last 6,000 years. And nobody's perfect. And if you're really honest with yourself, you'll fess up and say, yeah, okay, maybe this decision I did 1,000 years ago was not so great. Or those people who don't have past lives, just look at their own life this lifetime. Hopefully they'll remember, past lunchtime a couple of weeks ago. But, they look back in their lifetime. This lifetime is okay. What can I improve? And to me, that's growth. That's what growth is.
Right.
Owning up to something we did that we now recognize may not have been the best choice at the time, but it was our choice, so we accept it, we own it. That's what I mean when I say accept it. We own it. And then we learn from it, and then we adjust and we change. To me, that's a conscious being. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's made mistakes. And it's okay, but I agree with you. Guilting people for something that they've done in the past only makes that person bitter. This goes to the concept I talk about in my purple book, my Marcus Aurelius book, where I talk about transcending cruelty. It's one of the 67 essays in there. And there's several essays where I talk about this idea of cruelty. So if you want to make somebody more cruel, what do? You punish them, and the more cruel you are to the cruel person, the more depressed you make them. And when you make them even more depressed and less secure within themselves, you have guaranteed to have a more cruel person out of that. Because why does the cruel person bully people? Because they're feeling insecure inside, so they bully other people around them and depress them more than they feel depressed. Then they feel better.
And depression is an issue these days, modern times, to segue. I want to get your thoughts, Kelvin, on, talking about change and what's happening in this world, with young men, like, on the plains of the Midwest, maybe in peaceful times before all of the Europeans came over here, there was, traditions and things like rites of passage, I think, for young men and women on a tribal, governmental, organizational thing. You're a father. What are your thoughts on that? And, that's I think that's a way, if we could contribute back to create some kind of structure or something that allowed young men and young women to have rites of passage, and people of all left and right and up and down, all human beings where they're at. Some kind of rites.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The rites of passage you're referring to from our native traditions, were we would call them today rituals. They were rituals that people went through at certain ages and certain times and so forth. And this is something that goes down through history. I mean, in ancient Rome, my memories then from 2,000 years ago, very similar in certain aspects of that culture. But it was much more widespread in native culture, because it was not so, there wasn't this, the social structure was more, was much more democratic, actually, in a sense. People took care, it was much more community oriented. People took care of each other. Families were much more supportive of each other. Relatives supported each other much more so than the individualistic society that we live in today. So it has pluses and minuses. I'm not saying that it absolutely was utopian either, but I do remember, and those are the good memories I have from that lifetime in the 1800s, how supportive we all were for each other. And these rites of passage you talk about for young men, and it was still a very male-dominated culture, which I'm not into now. But it was very male-dominated then. And so, the young men went through these rituals and so forth, and they were useful. I'm now past the ritual thing in my lifestyle, but I teach my children, and I teach them by example, and I give them guidance. And, I view myself as a teacher when I'm their parent. I'm their guide, and they are their own soul, and they're going to make their own choices, and they're going to skin their knees. But I'm their guide. I'm there to try to help them not burn themselves by putting their hand on the stove.
And how do you feel? One last personal question, then we'll get to the subject matter. How do you feel about the intersection of technology and our children?
Oh, it's tough. It's a real challenge. My kids are 28 and 34 years old, and even they, at their age, talk about the kids younger than they are, how different and how self-absorbed the kids are, and self-absorbed the kids are generally, and self-absorbed how the kids are. That's reinforced by the technology that the kids are involved in. I don't think it's a healthy thing for parents. I just flew back from the East Coast a couple of nights ago, and I live in Los Angeles, so I see these little kids with their electronic devices, and they're 2 years old, and they're on a 5-hour flight. 2 years old, nonstop, 2, 3, 4 years old. That's a those are parents who are not parenting, to be honest. They're just not. They're not getting creative about how to parent with their kids. They're just keeping the kids shut up.
They moved out, but I still worry about them. But still, the kids younger than them, like you said, your kids said, even the children younger than they are.
It's tough.
So tell us,
Tell
us to pivot towards the subject matter. Tell us about how you started to realize or have experiences around, tell us what your experience is with your past life or lives as a Native American. You said Lakota. Tell us all about it. Where did it start?
Yeah. So my Lakota lifetime started, my memories started in around 1978, 79-ish, or around then. And it was very, 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 I didn't know it was a past life. I just thought it was something that maybe I saw in a movie or something that was resurfacing in my mind. And my first experience was seeing a scene, and I was on a crescent-shaped hill, top of a hill. It was crescent-shaped, and I knew it was crescent-shaped because I looked to my right, and I could see about 20 or 30 of my fellow Braves that way on horseback, and I looked to my left, and I could see them curving along the crescent that way, another 20 or 30 or so. So there were about, 40, 50, 60 of us up on this crescent hillside, and I was right in the middle. And I remember I could see my clothes. I couldn't see myself, but I could see my clothes, what I was wearing, and I had a bone breastplate, so forth. And I remember I was just about ready to say, let's go, basically, the equivalent in Lakota of, and I saw down below a river and another native tribe. So it obviously wasn't us. It was, we were attacking. So another native tribe down there.
Nation.
It wasn't white. It wasn't soldiers or whatever. It was another native tribe that we were attacking for whatever reason. That was my first experience that I didn't realize till many years later had to do with a past life memory. So it was just something that I kept seeing, and I could see it as clear as day. For many, many years, off and on, it would creep into my mind. Much later, I started having more memories of that lifetime, and maybe 20 years later or whatever, I started spontaneously speaking some languages that I didn't know what it was, and I looked it up, and I was talking about fishing, going fishing in Lakota and stuff. So just kind of random daily activity stuff. Gotcha. I started seeing myself in teepees and inside with meetings of elders, and I was sometimes running the meetings, and sometimes I was a shaman in the meetings, and that confused me for many, many, many years. So here's a teaching example for people. Sometimes you get these memories and they don't seem to go together. And then, but about 20 years after that, another 20 years later, that's when I realized who I was, and that there was this leader who was a shaman and a leader who was very psychic, and he was a leader of one of the great Lakota tribes.
Who was that badass?
Yeah.
What was that? What was that? His name in that lifetime?
That was Sitting Bull, and the way I figured out.
I was just thinking that name.
Yeah, the way I was figured out Sitting Bull is because in the mid aughts, as we call them, it was like 2000. I have the exact year in my book, and I can't remember exactly what the year is, but let's say it's around 2014, 15 or something like that. I was sitting in my apartment in Austin, Texas, alone, and I thought, I'm going to turn the TV off and just mindless stuff on. I'm going to do an experiment, and I because I knew that I had been in the Lakota Nation, the Lakota tribe, in some leadership role, but I had this shaman experience also doing shamanistic stuff, and that confused me because am I this or am I that? I thought it was an either or. So I opened up my laptop and I thought, you know what? Lakota keeps coming up, so I'm going to bring up a whole bunch of Lakota chiefs, and I'm just going to look at their pictures, no names. And I brought up, and people don't know, but there were 6 Lakota tribes. So over the years of the decades, you have turnover in the chiefs. So you got 6 different tribes. You get a lot of chiefs. Yeah, so there's a couple of dozen. So I just typed in Lakota chiefs in the image, and I clicked images, and maybe there were 100 images came up of the different chiefs, and maybe there were I can't remember, 20 or 30 of them were chiefs, different chiefs, but some duplicate pictures and so forth. So I'm clicking through, and I start clicking through. They're all in the 1800s. The camera was invented in whatever it was, right, 1840 or something like that. Okay. So the people, were taking black and white pictures of them. And so I'm clicking through, and I thought maybe I'll get a hit. Maybe I'll get some energy rush, or some, vision, or some energy, some knowingness, something. And I'm clicking, nothing, clicking up, nothing, clicking and nothing, clicking, I'm clicking through, I'm getting nothing. I'm just seeing a bunch of pictures, and it's like, I'm feeling emotionally nothing. And I just clicked and clicked and clicked. I get up to about the 8th or the 9th one. I start babbling in this language that I don't understand what I'm saying. And it sounds very native to me, as somebody who's never studied these languages. And so I click off of them, and I click to a next. I stop talking, and I click to the next one. Nothing. The next one. Nothing. I go back to that one where I was I start babbling again into the same one. So I go and I check who it is. I check the name. It's Sitting Bull. And then when I looked up Sitting Bull, I follow the breadcrumbs. This is what I teach people in my classes. I say, when you get these hits, you just follow the breadcrumbs, see where they take you. So I follow the breadcrumbs, and I look up Sitting Bull. Turns out he was a shaman, and he was a leader of one of the Lakota tribes of Humpapa Lakota, and then eventually he was elected or appointed or whatever, selected by the other
tribal
leaders to be the head of all
like
the tribes, the Lakotas. So, yeah.
Okay.
Super governor.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
Legends.
Pretty wild.
I mean, I believe the beginnings of our counties' governmental systems are somewhat based on the way the nations were managed back in the day.
Lakotas I don't know. You know more about that than I do.
No, I don't.
I don't know about the crossover, but yeah.
I only heard that it was, and
that they had some. It was used in part of writing the Constitution, right? That's what I heard, but there's no way to verify if that's
also kind of part of Abrahamic tradition too. Like I think Moses, the way he governed the nations at the time. Very similar to what they did on the plains here, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, this American experience is not new, right? This has been practiced thousands of years before with different civilizations. I don't know. People get this weird idea that somehow America is the only one that tried this model of government, but it's not.
You really want to look at our model of government. It's a republic. It's not a it's not a democracy. We use that phrase very, very loosely.
Bingo.
Yeah,
it's not one vote for everybody. Doesn't just get to vote for every decision that's made in our national government. No, we have a thing called Congress, and we got the House of Representatives and the Senate and so forth. That's modeled on what? That's modeled on Rome and Greece, right? You want to talk about ancient Rome with Senate and so forth. Rome was a republic. We live in a republic. People who know anything about government understand that we have representatives, and it's called a republic. But yeah, no, my memories in terms of the native lifetime are more selective, you could say, in terms of my personality. I don't have memories so much of the government and the community, how the structure was and this, that. My memories are very personal, and that's true for most of my lifetimes.
Tell us one.
They're very personal, and they're very personality driven. So what do I mean by that? The thing that I remember from through the last 6,000 years of my memories that go back 6,000 years, a couple dozen lifetimes, is the personality traits that continue from lifetime to lifetime. The Battle of Little Bighorn with Custer and all of that. Those, I have some memories of it, not the whole thing, but I have some memories of that. But those are incidental, really. They're really incidental to what? To the personality traits of myself. For example, my deep desire to protect women and children, my need, emotional need to protect women and children from my lifetime as Sitting Bull. And there are examples of me doing that then that are documented. And they're still available to be read in the local journals and so forth, because it's not that long ago that, when that happened. But there are also historically documented examples of that trait in me 2,000 years ago when I was in Rome, and I was really against
the
pedophilia.
slave ship accident.
Pedophilia, which was legal in Rome at the time, and then my stepfather became Emperor Antoninus Pius became Emperor of Rome, and one of the first things he did was get rid of pedophilia, because the previous emperor Hadrian was a pedophile, etc. So, but in my native lifetime, I returned women and children back to the fort of the soldiers who had raped and murdered our own Lakota women and children, and I did that much to the great anger of the other tribal leaders. But I said no. I made what we call today an executive decision. I said no. We're sending them back, the women and children. We're not going to do the same to them, what they did to our children and our women. We are a civilized people. We are not heathens and barbarians like they are. We are a civilized culture and a civilized people. We are going to do the right thing, and we're going to treat their women and children with respect, because they're not the ones who attacked us. Their husbands did, and their uncles and their fathers did, whoever. And so they're the ones that we have a beef with. They're the ones we're fighting. The women and children, we don't abuse them. And so that's a very deep thing, and it's very deep in me still. And so those personality traits are the stuff that have persisted over thousands of years in me. That's my takeaway.
Yeah.
It's less about what I've learned about the Lakota existence and so forth.
Sure,
although I've gotten glimpses. It's more about what I've learned about myself as a Lakota leader, and also as a slave 2,300 years ago, and a Buddhist monk 500 years ago, and a this and a that. Sometimes a known person, and sometimes most of the time just as an unknown person. But what have I learned, and what do I know more about who I am? That's the thing that has.
I think everybody deserves to go through that kind of discovery or journey. I guess this ties back to how people can get involved with what you're teaching, because everyone deserves to take that inward journey of discovering more about, because we lack that in our society today. Like, you look around and you look at the epidemics of suicides and depression and all the mental illnesses we have right now in our society. It's because everybody's twice removed from themselves. Everybody's outward, right? No one's looking inward or taking a look at themselves or trying to go within anymore, because we're so distracted. Again, back to the technology conversation we had earlier, right?
Yeah.
And no, I think what you're saying, or the perspective I've gotten from listening to you speak, is that it's very helpful to take a broad view or a long-term zoomed out view of not only your own life, but the world in perspective, because it would eliminate a lot of this stuff we have now. Just look at how we are mean with each other on the comment section. People get so into it, like,
I'm never mean.
No, what I mean is people take things to heart, to the point like it's do or die. It's this comment I just left you. It's this perspective I have on politics or religion or the culture war or whatever, that they're not taking a moment that you, like when I brought up that question earlier, you took it from the angle that, hey, it's always been this way since back however many lifetimes ago till now. You ain't telling me nothing new, brother. Right? That's kind of how I took your answer, which it's a good point, because in the moment you don't look at it from that perspective, right? You're
and yet things have changed and things have improved
in a spiral.
So things have improved somewhat. Absolutely. Look, the mortality, child mortality, mortality rate before age 10, it was like 30%. 1 out of 3 children died 2,000 years ago before age 10. So has it gotten better? Yes.
Clean
Have
water.
we, clean water, soap, plumbing, indoor plumbing. A lot of people don't realize that in the 1940s, in the United States, in the 1940s, half of the household did not have indoor plumbing. You were going out in the backyard to go to the bathroom, okay? Half of the U.S. households in 1940. It's not that long ago. So, yes, things have changed and they have improved. Is there a lot more room for improvement? Absolutely.
Always.
So, there's always room for improvement. But back to your initial point, turning within is crucial. Connecting with oneself. And that's what I've learned myself in my own journey. And that's why I teach what I teach when I teach about meditation, or I teach about some of the ideas in my books. They're internal ideas. They're ideas, they're concepts to think about and to understand and apply pragmatically in our waking state life while we're wide awake, open eyes, walking around on planet Earth, how can we apply these to help us live a life with less suffering and more contentment and inner peace? So yeah, the meditation is the experiential side of that, and that's what I teach, is how to turn within and connect in an easy, effortless way with oneself. And I've removed all the cultural trappings from the teaching, and I've made the teaching even easier and more flexible. 10 to 15 minutes twice a day, that's all you need to do. And you don't clear the mind, and you don't focus on the breath, and you don't have to control the mind at all, and allow the mind to connect with itself. And then, so that's the experiential component. And then the understanding component is the ideas and concepts that I teach about cruelty and about forgiveness and about love, and how to love somebody, even, in a way that may seem that it's fraught with conflict and so forth. How can we move forward from that situation in a healthy way, and maybe sometimes leave the other person behind? That in the extreme case, right?
Yeah.
Or how can we work things out in a more interest-based conflict resolution way, rather than fighting with the other person? So these are the kind of ideas that I teach in my classes that are separate from the afterlife classes we talked about earlier, right?
Okay.
I have this thought that keeps coming, question, kind of line of thinking keeps coming up, so I want to talk about it. This idea that you live many lifetimes and you can reflect back as memories all of these lifetimes where this process of eliminating all of the excess noise. Each lifetime is an opportunity to clear and remove things that separate us from the one vibe and the one source that everybody gets uniquely when you turn everything out and you just listen to that, providence. And then we have the mind, the body, and the soul to operate in this, in this world. So it's just, I don't know, very liberating. I think, my point was that, each lifetime is an opportunity to remove splinters from our eye.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
The average is the matrix. Is the world set up in such a way to give the human being that opportunity to wake up to that?
Yeah,
Some people,
the world is not set up in any way. So this whole notion that there's a matrix, or that,
right? I
think that's a lot. I don't espouse that belief system, because the thing, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and so the evidence that I use is that the mind is a free will thinking entity. It's a free will thinking entity. The mind, each individual mind, soul, spirit, consciousness, whatever. There is nobody and no thing that can control that. Now, are there minds that will try to control? Absolutely. There are human minds, and there are minds on the other side that are not human minds that could try to control one's thoughts and actions and behavior. But does an individual mind, this is how I define a mind.
Okay.
Does the mind always have the choice, the ability to choose something other than what somebody's trying to influence or force them into thinking? Absolutely, yes. And the example that I give is, this gets a little abstract, minds are what I call anti-entropic. So what's entropy mean? I was explaining this to some of my students in the Philippines. I have two really bright young teenage Filipino meditation students, and they were asking me about this. So I had to explain to them what entropy was. They didn't understand. So for those in the audience who also don't understand what entropy is, even those who, many of us live in the United States, maybe don't know what entropy is. Mm-hmm. Entropy is a concept, and what it means is that basically, in a nutshell, to use layperson language, it's the tendency in the universe for things, if left alone, to naturally become disorganized.
Right.
We'll say sometimes people
Decay.
use the word chaos. They use the chaos, but disorganized, I think, is a more easy way to get people's mind around it from a layperson language, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, example, I leave this apartment here in Los Angeles, and I never ever come back. I walk out the door, and no other person ever comes in here, ever. You come back here in 300, 400, 500 years or 1,000 years from now, pick a long period of time, and what's going to be left here? Not a lot.
Mold.
It's going to, a lot of stuff has just turned to dust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, except maybe the plastic of my AirPod, like the plastic stuff will still be here. The plastic will probably still be here 1,000 years from now, but all the other stuff will degrade. It becomes disorganized. It becomes, and the natural tendency in the universe, if stuff is left alone, becomes entropic. It becomes disorganized. It degrades. Okay. What is that what is that energy in the universe that is anti-entropic that can actually make entropy not happen?
Your will?
I call that a mind.
Will?
That's a mind.
A mind. Okay.
No.
Mind.
That's what I call a mind. That's how I define what a mind is that it can actually change what naturally would happen. And it doesn't have to be a human mind. It could be, let's take in the forest.
Tree.
If you just left the forest, it would degrade over thousands of years. Now, it may be lots of thousands of years because some of the trees are 1,000 years old. But maybe, over 1 million years, things could degrade, or 10,000 years, whatever, long term. Okay? Fires, trees come down, they rot, they get mold, whatever. What in that forest is anti-entropic? Well, what minds are in there that can change that entropy? A beaver can change that. They will make a decision to go cut down a tree. Their mind is making a decision to put the tree across the river, build a beaver dam and a home, and whatever they call them, lodges or whatever they call the beavers' home that they live in. Okay. That is anti-entropic. That is an example of a mind operating there. Okay, it's changing the natural entropic, disorganized tendency of the universe. That's how I think of a mind. So, how did we get on this topic? I can't remember.
The Matrix is not real because...
the Matrix. Yeah. So the Matrix means what?
Before you continue.
Matrix means predetermination. That's what that implies. That means no free will. Every anti-entropic entity, which is how I'm defining a mind, has free will. And if you have free will to make any decision that's different from what some people refer to as the hive, you make any, then there is no. You have one exception to this notion of destiny and predetermination. That means there is no predetermination. Predetermination is an absolute concept. Now, you'll hear some people loosey-goosey use it.
Right.
That's incorrect English.
I mean,
they're making up gobbledygook.
We're just fractals.
Right.
Honestly, the sounds come through, the more closely we resonate with the deeper sounds that are higher than our own purpose, our own soul's purpose. If we can align that with the deeper vibe, then you can live a different.
So the message you're saying, Kelvin, to what you just, to wrap it up in a nutshell, you're basically saying, hey, we're all free at any given moment, no matter what.
Yes.
And this matrix concept, the only reason it is a matrix, it's because it's a concept that was planted in your mind. That is the slavery. The concept itself is the slavery.
Yeah, there's no technical matrix.
You can be conceptually
trapped,
enslaved. There's lots of institutions. I'm not going to name any, but there's a lot of institutions that enslave. Look, you guys, we kind of share a commonality on one that has become very enslaved. It wasn't like that in the 1970s when I was part of it, but it has become and organizations tend to do that. They can tend to do that.
Tamasic.
So, but your mind always has the ability to do something different. And it doesn't matter. There's no, people talk about connection and feeling some force and so forth,
right?
Like in Star Wars and stuff like that. And I get it. There's energy that connects people, but there's no force that's conscious, that's making you make your decisions. People talk about God, and I don't step on people's toes when they talking about God. They can believe that God controls everything and that God is a slave owner and controls everything and is pulling the puppet strings. That's their belief system. Does that fit with free will and the choices that people make? You see them make every day that are in contravention to even the most devout person. Sometimes say, I'm just going to skip the prayer bead, this one prayer bead. The devout Catholic or the devout Buddhist or whoever doing the whatever. I'm not picking on any particular denomination or religion. But it's like, yeah, they will choose to not go to church sometimes or not go to temple or, I got to run, I get my kid, I lit one candle in the temple and, I was going to do 5, but, no, I did 2 or 3. Those are free will decisions. Those are choices. And as soon as you see a mind that can do one of those, then that's free will. It's not predetermination. There's no force making you do anything. You can feel a connection with people. And I've had thousands, probably tens of thousands experiences now that I've meditated 40,000 times in 52 years, approximately. Who's counting? But, just the feeling of connection. The feeling of connection is not the same as some force is controlling me. Those are two different things. And people make those kind of jumps all the time in spiritual. And you hear it in spiritual conversations all the time. And it's wrong.
Yeah, the Matrix
it's
concept,
incorrect.
it never really went that deep for me, like the Matrix thinking the way he's thinking of it.
But I still think it exists, but on from a different perspective, in the sense that it's a concept or a system that people have to mentally buy into. And when you buy into it, that's the slavery. That's the horse with the chain along on the chair. Well, I don't know if you've seen that.
But I don't even. When you're calling Matrix, it sounds like some esoteric thing. How is that any different from when I went to church? I'll just pick on myself because I want to be very, I want to step on other people's toes. But how's that any different from when I went to Sunday school every Sunday because my parents said I had to? Right? How is that any different from me falling into whatever the First Congregational Church in Norwood, Massachusetts was promoting and propounding at the time and teaching? That's what you're calling Matrix. It's not something esoteric. Yeah, it's just falling into a line of thinking. And I chose to not follow it, but many people chose to. So that's what you're describing as Matrix. All it is a belief system.
It is, but it's reinforced by those who control media, and so they're shaping collective consciousness with.
Yeah, but that's just more belief system that it's not. I don't like the word Matrix because Matrix makes it sound like the movie Matrix, meaning it is created by something that's not in human control.
Yeah, no, we're not.
That's what the word. And I've been on podcasts where they use it exactly that way, and they say that we are just machines, literally like in the movie, and we don't have any control. I've been on shows like that,
no, we're not. So we're not right wingers.
From my
then you got to be careful. You got to change your language.
Okay,
and stop using it
that language is
that's what that means now. Okay,
I got you.
Just a heads up.
Okay, so now you're saying Matrix means a system or a rigid system that controls people is how it's being used, is what you're saying. That's how it's...
that's not created by people. You're using it as a system that's controlling people, and in the way that I just gave you the example of me going to church.
Right.
Which I did do for many years when I was a kid. Okay? and I don't want to pick on that church because it was very open and liberal and very open-minded and sober. But I'm just using that as an example.
Gotcha.
That's not what Matrix means out there.
Let me ask you then about mythology and demigods and things like that. The men of renown. Talk to me about that.
What about it? What about
it? Past lives. Are there bloodlines that came down and provided us a little bit of an upgrade, and then,
are you trying to get into
impose
our alien ancestry?
When you control access to knowledge, then you can kind of control people, and so the holding back of access to knowledge through initially the church and now through the media and CIA. That is a matrix of sorts, and maybe it's just a fantasy.
So there's an underlying assumption that you're making, Tony, there in this question, and that there is some body of knowledge that people, if they had, they would be better off. There's some existing body of knowledge that already exists, and only a certain number of people or certain people in power know where that body of knowledge is. That's that to me. I don't espouse that. I think that also leans in the direction of this notion
Entropy.
Of determinism that there's already figured out knowledge and and either God or a group of gods or this planetary council of galactic minds and You talk about all these different groups, and they're all different groups who have this belief system. I think it's all a reflection of what I call in some of my essays in the Purple Book, the importance of being important. It's all these different beings, whether they're on this side, an institution, or whether they're on the other side. There are many institutions on the other side. We can call them clubs. There's like little clubs that you can get membership in. And the other side, if you have a certain belief system. And it's like, they're the leaders of the clubs, what are they? They're into developing followers, gathering followers, and being an important person in that leadership.
Right. Yeah.
And it's all this silliness. And it's like, to me, the bottom line is every individual mind has the free will. And I encourage my students to think for themselves, that there is no body of knowledge that somebody owns that you need to get access to, whether it's in this scripture or that scripture, that knowledge is, look, Maharishi used to say knowledge is structured in consciousness. How many times have you heard him say that? And actually, the way I would translate that in plain English to people is that people's level of understanding of life is based on the clarity of their mind and their level of self-awareness. Now, what's their clarity of mind and level of self-awareness based on? How much they're connected with their larger sense of self, which I don't call it that anymore, but that's the phrase that most people know.
Mm-hmm. Like your higher self.
I just higher self. I don't use those phrases anymore because I think of it as just connecting with myself. Right. Myself, my mind is not just the mind that's talking to you guys in this podcast.
Right.
My mind is that plus the vastness. Mm-hmm. And that connection with that of us, which is not something that's outside of me. It is me. That brings about greater knowledge, because knowledge has to be self-generated. That's my translation of what Maharishi used to say, knowledge is structured in consciousness.
No, I agree.
It has to be self-generated. Right. Yeah, you can read a book. You can go to a workshop, you can watch a YouTube video, etc. But then you pull that in and you have to assimilate that. And does that information and data and knowledge data resonate with you? The stuff that resonates will sink in and it'll be part of your consciousness going forward. The stuff that doesn't will sit on a shelf. And that's what I teach my students to do, how to discern. This discerning and discriminating and distinguishing ideas, and how to think about ideas clearly, and how to embrace certain ideas that make sense for you, and discarding the ones that don't. That discernment is largely lost in humanity. To me, long term, that people say, what's going to save humanity? That's what's going to save humanity, in my opinion.
Turning within.
Turning within and thinking clearly. Turning within alone is not enough. Yeah, we got plenty of friends who sit in the cave, the virtual cave, and all day long their eyes are closed. You guys know we have friends, okay? Right? Who do that? If they're not also changing their thinking about how they think about different ideas and concepts and then applying that practically in their life, another way of saying the same thing is aligning our desires with our thoughts and our actions and in our behavior, that creates what? Fulfillment of desires. What's that create? More inner contentment, greater inner peace, more happiness. If we're not doing that, and we're just sitting with our eyes closed, then it's not assimilating into our consciousness.
Right.
We have
You're
to,
not bringing it forward, into the existence.
Well, look at Maharishi talked about dyeing the cloth. You can't just dip it. You got to hang it in the sun. You got to hang it in the sun, right? That analogy. So, both are necessary, and that's what I teach my students. And when you have both, then the discernment can naturally start happening. That's what I see in my students. They start making better decisions. They can start seeing things for what they are in a relationship that's gone bad, or a work relationship that's better, and they don't have the fear to take the jump and to go there, so forth. Those kind of discernments, that's to me is what is largely lacking. To me, our educational system has gone so far to one way that just teaching information, we just load up information, and we don't teach people how to think and discern. And I don't mean think in the way a lot of people think, because a lot of people think means by my belief system. No, that's not thinking. Discerning amongst belief systems and picking out and figuring out what your own is, that's what's discernment, not following the crowd blindly.
I don't want to say it, but how some human beings don't have access to acquire that level.
Everybody has that.
Everybody has that.
Okay,
here's the thing, just to back up what he said, is that the law, all of the law is within everyone. When you get down to the most fundamental, like the laws of physics precede the laws of biology, precedes more social constructs that are inherent within us, the knowledge of good and bad, how we should behave. We all share that. We all share
I get
a
it.
mind.
Once the mind
common.
is alive, it will always.
We all share a
anti-entropy. I got that. But when you're initially born, you're born into something, right? You're not coming in as a clean slate.
That's true. So everybody, but that's outside. Here's what we've got. You've got cultural constructs. The ancient ones, even though they're very different languages or whatever, they vibrate the same. They perform the same way, and that is the culture of the ancient cultures of every nation and every people. And those translate into, what am I trying to say? Is that
okay, so
I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say, Kelvin. If you kind of see the idea where I'm going with that, is that I suppose, coming back to your point, what you're saying is that regardless of what this individual human being is born into, the mind that they're coming into the world with eventually is going to hit some resistance, which will basically open them up or give them the opportunity.
Well, it could. The issue is this. Sure, being born into a very challenging situation, whether it's familial or whether it's cultural, geographic. All of those are factors. I'm not stupid, I mean, I recognize I'm not naive. Yeah, all those are factors that can inhibit one's ability to grow in this self-awareness way that we're talking about. That said, is every mind, every soul, does every soul have the inherent ability to grow? Absolutely, yes. And so how that happens is unique to that individual. But look at me. I was born 2,300 years ago into an African family somewhere in West Africa, and what I think we now call the Ivory Coast, somewhere around there. And as an adult in my community, I was captured by Carthaginians, soldiers, and forced to be a slave on their ship. Did that terrible situation cause me to just roll up in a ball and be a vegetable and just say, be passive? And so, no, I was chained down, so I couldn't, but did I keep myself mentally and emotionally as strong as I could throughout that situation? Yes. Do I recognize that that's very difficult to do for everybody, including myself? Yes, obviously. But is it possible, is my point. That's what I'm using that example, my own example as a slave. Is it possible? Yes, it's an inherent ability that every human mind has. And I have many, many clients who have been born into this lifetime terrible situations. And they've had terrible relationships and have been abused and all kinds of stuff. Have some of them, not all of them, have some of them been able to pull themselves out of it? Yes, by making certain choices that are better than, the choices that those people who were abusing them were making, obviously. So it's not because they're a fault of themselves for being abused. That's a mistake when people talk about karma and dharma, about that kind of stuff. I write a big stop sign on that.
Oh, really?
When you hear people go down that road, they deserve they must be, they were getting paid back. No. Okay. Wrong. But can we, to your point, can a mind inherently make choices and move forward in a more self-aware way, more healthy way? Yes, it's possible. It is possible.
And a lot of people need to cross over on that. So this is your workshops and things you talk about are a passageway for people who need it. Yeah. I mean, everybody needs, for some people, it happens through meditation.
Right.
I did have a transcendent experience the first time I used the mantra, the TM mantra that I got.
Okay.
My initiation was beautiful.
So in this,
psychedelics also, sometimes that'll shake something out. And you'll have an experience of transcendent that's different, and then you move forward, to, if that's not for everybody. Sometimes it's reading a book.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in drugs, but because they can have all kinds of major side effects, and then not everybody is going to have a transcendent experience either.
No,
some people have.
Some people have gone.
Some people have had mental breaks. I have friends who have children and so forth, and I've had very close family members.
That's true.
Have had psychic breaks and so forth, and then have mental issues.
Yeah.
But there are. It has been used ritually as a.
Yeah, in ancient cultures, that's a different.
Even then, even in those native communities where it's been used as a ritual,
right?
You don't hear about the people who've gone psychotic from using ayahuasca. It's not good marketing for that culture themselves.
You're
even.
Right.
So
you're right.
It's not. In my opinion, I take a natural approach, and natural.
Sorry.
Also, you can overdo. Look, I'm not going to get into details, but I've seen firsthand instances of people meditating too much on some of these old courses in the 1970s, where there was There were no, there were no, there was no guidelines really. There were zero guidelines. It was just go in your room and do it. And so, you know, everything has to be done in balance. That's the thing.
Got it.
Anyway,
But your workshops help people kind of at least see themselves in new ways.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And I got to jump in a few minutes.
Well,
I got to coming up. But yeah, that's the thing. Connecting with oneself in a way where you are guided by somebody who knows how to restore balance, because life is about balance. It's not about overdoing this or overdoing that. Even if that is good for you, you can still overdo it. That's what I was saying. And so life is about balance. We want to restore balance within ourselves. That's to me where contentment and inner peace reside.
All right. Well, I think that's a good wrap up. Kelvin, again, always a pleasure. And again, my apologies on the technical difficulties, but we'll have it better for the next time. And again, thank you for coming on our show. It was a great conversation.
All
I
right,
think
guys.
a lot.
To see you
And we will go ahead and post all your links in our description for this video when we post it.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Cool.
I appreciate it.
We'll
Take care,
find some
guys.
good things to pull out of this. So thank you.